Welcome to the Business Consulting panel for the Women in Tech Career Lab session. My name is Marta, and I'll be moderating as the panelists will provide an overview of their journey in business consulting and beyond. But before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about business consulting. At CGI, it's our ability to connect the dots between business operations and technology. We pride ourselves on our ability to provide solutions that are not only insightful, but also implementable. This allows our clients to execute on their vision and their goals. As you will learn, our panelists have a wide range of skill sets that make them flexible and adaptable to meet their client needs and become the leaders of tomorrow. And I can't wait for all of you to hear from these wonderful women today. In terms of my own career journey, I started in consulting over 4 years ago, working my way from a project control officer to project manager, scrum master, business consultant, and now specializing in organizational change. My career journey can be defined by constant learning and having an openness to take on many new opportunities. Now I will pass it over to our panel. So I would like to start with Ivy. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career journey in business consulting?
Yeah, so welcome everyone today. And my name is Ivy Tang. I'm the business consulting co-lead for Canada and CJ's talent brand ambassador. So I am also a strategic business agility coach with a focus in organizational change management. So Martha, Nidhi, Rhiannon, and I work very closely together, and we also specialize in CIO advisory. So I actually joined the CGI as a co-op many, many years ago as a Java developer. So you can imagine my career has been pivoting from one role to another and landing in a business consulting role and really discover my interest in project management and then really essentially trying to figure out how I can help businesses to be more effective. And I started in leadership coaching and then got involved in a lot of transformation programs. So until recently, I was responsible for business consulting in the public sector as well as manufacturing and distribution. Nidhi?
Yes, thanks for that, Ivy. Very happy to be here today. And again, very thankful for everyone joining today. A little bit about me is I joined CGI as they were growing the Toronto Business Consulting Group 6 years ago now. And really, very much my focus is around offering business strategy offerings, change management as well, and innovation offerings for large organizations, primarily within the financial sector as they're approaching large transformations. We really help around the people and the process of the technology investments that are being made. Prior to coming to CGI, I was focused in a management consulting firm. And they really honed in on strategic foresight. So, very front end innovation and management consulting, which was really, really great because that gave me the opportunity to work with C suite executives to figure out what the next business model was. And I really find that coming from there to CGI was a really great leap because CGI is very much applied in their business consulting. So not only do I do a really great strategy decks, we actually see the outcomes of that, and we get to work with our clients to see the value add outcomes. Now, prior to my management consulting career, I was at RBC for 10 years. So I have a very fluid career, I'd say. I've been jumping around to industry. And even in between that, I dabbled into entrepreneurship. But I think one thing that's remained really focused within my career is a really deep focus on human-centric design. So having empathy for the customers that I work with and trying to solve the compelling problems that they're faced with.
Wonderful. Thank you. Rhiannon?
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. So I'm Rhiannon Stromberg, and I'm a director of business consulting, and I co-lead our practice for Western Canada. Specifically, I have the honor and pleasure of working with organizations through their organizational transformation. And really, I came to CGI about 3 years ago, where I initially started out doing that work as a director of consulting expert and then moving into that role in terms of managing a team. And it really allows me to use my former experience where I worked for different orders of government, helping them essentially transform different services and establish new service lines.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as everyone can see here, that part of being a business consultant really does require having adaptable skill sets, being flexible, and taking on many new different things. So moving on to the next question, and I'm sure as many of you here know that business consulting, it really does encompass many different sectors. I would like to kick it off with Rhiannon. what trends are you recognizing in your sector as it relates to business consulting?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question, Marta. And I think it's, just so timely that I think, specifically maybe I'll limit my comments to the public sector. And, certainly when we think about the uncertainty we're seeing globally, as and how that's kind of playing out nationally across Canada, I would say from both a provincial, national, and even a municipal order of government perspective, I would say governments are starting to really consider the programs and services that they offer on behalf of their citizens and being able to ensure that those demonstrate good value in the context of the funding constraints that they live with. So they really want to be able to show that kind of strong connection between those taxpayers' dollars and being able to kind of show that value. Just a couple of examples that really come to kind of top of mind for me is we see that change then happening at both an incremental and transformative kind of level. So here in British Columbia, the provincial government announced a provincial review of all government programs. Over in Alberta, we kind of see a similar effort underway, and specifically, there's been a significant transformation happening around the Alberta health sector. And then even federally, we see the new government recently announced as part of, when Mark Carney was on the campaign trail, that idea of doing a comprehensive review of government spending. So certainly top of mind right now.
Those are some really great insights. So I would like to pass this over now to Ivy. So Rhiannon comes from the western side of Canada, and Ivy's a little bit more central, located in Ontario. So what are some trends that you are recognizing in your sector, Ivy?
Yeah, so in our sector within the Greater Toronto Area, more so with the Ontario government. So I will kind of pick up where Ryan and you were talking about the public sector. We are also seeing there's a lot of attention on the security and the effective use of the citizens' data so that we can actually leverage it for better citizen experience. To Nidhi's earlier point is around human-centric design. It is certainly a challenging time. We can all imagine with the manufacturers, the retailers, as the global supply chain was already under a huge pressure coming from during COVID and post-COVID. And we're really looking into how, from a trend perspective, really looking at the reduction of the cost that they have across the value chain that they are doing so that they don't need to, manufacturers don't need to pass on the cost to the consumers because everybody is really getting impacted by everything that's happening geopolitically. So the key is really about, do they have the data and the context built into their business, and how do we actually help them get there as business consultant? So we do have change management experts here. So we actually look at what we call the pro side research, and the pro side research actually talks about technology can solve up to about 30 to 35% of the issues that we are seeing across the board with the supply chain. But the rest is really done by people and is really people centric. That really means that for whatever transformation that we do and we recommend as business consultants, we need to help the client and we need to help ourselves to get the buy-ins to really make these changes across the board so that data and everything else works effectively across the organizations for them. And it's really never just based on tech, it's really connecting that strategy to execution.
Thank you, Ivy. Those are some great insights. So yes, what we're really hearing is there's lots of changes happening. And as a result of those changes, it influences some of those trends, specifically in organizational change management, client journey, centricity, digital transformation, and so on. So now I want to switch gears a little bit. And Nidhi, I would like to ask you, what skills contribute the most to your success in business consulting, both in terms of day-to-day work and those that make you stand out?
And
Oh, Nidhi.
That's a great question, and thanks for asking that. It's interesting because I did make a shift from industry, working at a bank, and then going to business consulting, and there was a lot of great learnings there. And one of them, I think, that was a really great parallel is that having that, I think this is a common theme within business consulting. We talk about business outcomes, but so much of that is around that human centricity, and so having a really in-depth interest in the client problem and actually applying a lot of empathy in regards to what you're hearing from the customer goes a long way. Consulting is competitive. It very, very much is. So having connections with the clients where first off, they're feeling heard and making sure that you're curious and you're asking those right questions. And oftentimes we don't have a lot of time to do that, to build that type of rapport. We're diving into new projects all the time. So having a really high focus of curiosity and interest into the customer is really important. I'd say enjoying a fast-paced environment as well. From industry perspective, you have a mandate and you do what you do it very, very well. So you have to do all of that here in business consulting, but the time frame in which we have our projects are sometimes shorter. So that speed, we always say, thrives in a fast-paced environment, but really if you enjoy that, that's a really critical part that I very much enjoy about consulting, and the fact that we have a plethora of different problems to solve, different companies and different teams that we're constantly working with really sharpens our skill sets. So another key component, I think, is, of course, being customer focused, enjoying a fast-paced environment, but having a growth mindset. And that growth mindset is, we're solving problems that are quite complex. If we're able to break down those problems in ways and create approaches to solve those problems that are more tangible, and kind of realize there's really no end point to a lot of the things in transformation. It's constant improvement. It's continuous evolution. So if you need a lot of stamina for that, but if you have those passions around growth mindset and really connect with your customer, I think you do very well in business consulting.
It's a wonderful answer. And I especially love what you said about being empathetic as well, really being able to understand your client and your teammates as well.
Yeah.
Ivy, I would also like to ask you the same question. What does your day-to-day look like in business consulting?
Yeah, so first I would like to echo the talking about how important it is about keeping that curiosity and passion. And really from a day-to-day standpoint, it's connecting with your client and finding those, different benchmarking, different trends with your colleagues is really important. And I think where we focus on, day-to-day in business consulting is constantly asking ourselves that, are we solving the right problem? Are we finding the right problem to solve? So, once we can actually help the client identify and do the researches, what is it happening in the market? What is it happening in the industry? How do they compare to the rest of the competition? And really asking that question to the client and to ourselves, every day during the day to day, are we solving the right problems together? And that really makes up, I think, a huge portion of our time during the day to day. Whatever approaches that we can actually leverage to really find that right problem to solve. And of course, to Nidhi's point around having the different approaches. And I find one thing that is interesting in our day to day, and I did not realize that, I would say, until I become deep into business consulting, is how important it is every day around how we tell a story. Like, how do we structure what we have uncovered through client conversations, that this is really, what your background is. This is what you're really facing. Paying that story that would resonate with them. Comes back to the empathy angle. Here's how it matches with what you do. How we can actually help you with that. So I would encourage for those who are interested in business consulting to really try to understand, how to actually present it on a piece of paper. Sometimes a picture worth 1,000 words in some of those instances.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So yes, really becoming that trusted advisor for a client, and your great point about being able to tell a story as well, because it's not just putting down information on a PowerPoint, it's being able to communicate it in an effective way. So I do want to switch gears a little bit. As we know, CGI is known for being a technology company. So Nidhi, I would like to know, what is it like to work somewhere that has traditionally been technology focused without a background in technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. I've always been the business person, the business individual in a group of either technologists or domain experts. I always say that sometimes I'm like that boring business individual that will always have to draw business insights out of things. However, it is a great skill to have. I think Ivy articulated it so well. When you think about the tremendous amount that's being invested in technology, we put a lot of stake into technology to make sure it's implemented well, we have the right solutions, they're released at the right time. And often it's not the technology is where the hiccups happen. They do, but I would find that more times challenges happen when you're talking about the people and the processes that surround that technology. So having someone solely focused, as well as we said, deeply obsessed with the customer, that's our number one. And then always looking out to ensure whatever minute or granular task we're doing, our job is to really bubble it up to what is the business benefit? What is the customer imperative? How is this actually enabling our customer to receive a competitive advantage? And these things seem simple, but it's very easy to forget the big picture when we're doing something so technical or domain specific. We actually even help SMEs, subject matter experts who are very, very smart in their domain, bring out that business insight, bring out that valuable, because oftentimes that storytelling that Ivy was speaking about doesn't always exist at the same level across the organization. And we want to ensure that we're empowering those right technology skills, ensuring our customers are making the right technology investments that connects the goals from business, operation, and technology. So I love, Marcia, you said it in the beginning too, business is just not one-sided. We really are the connectors across the enterprise. So there's a lot of merit, I'd say, in having a business expertise in the technology domain. I think you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your sentiment. Ivy, would you like to weigh in on this question as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, especially I've been deep in technology implementation, at the early career of mine. It really is about asking again. It's not about the most niche technology. It's not about we need to jump onto, implementing everything that's new as the newest platform. It's really about, is this the right investment for your client? Asking that return on investment question, are we providing the most value for where it's needed? And I think this is a golden question to, from business consultant to the technology implementer, I would say. And that's really where we can find that nice intersection to really kind of have the business and the technology come together. It needs to make sense from a cost and effort perspective.
Thank you, Ivy. And we actually got one question about this in the chat. So I would like to read it because I think it's quite relevant to Rhiannon, what you're working on. So how do you make sure that when you work in a company that is technology focused, how do you convince the people on the technology side of the business that people matter?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. And I think, I just want to start by saying, like, if I could just spend the next hour asking Ivy and Marta nitty questions, like I feel like there's just so many great insights that I can take from other members of this panel. And I think, really kind of one of the things Nidhi said that really resonated with me is sometimes the technology side isn't necessarily the hard part. It's the people and the process, as Nidhi was getting at. So I really try to emphasize that ultimately we are here to help the business tell that story, which maybe goes back to another point that Ivy made, which is how does implementing this technology or this new solution help really drive the business's overall objectives, as well as how do we ensure that the technology works for the people that it's meant to basically be able to serve.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. It's very interesting because when I was in university studying, this question actually came up in my business program as well. And something that my professor mentioned was being able to be a technology translator in a way. So business side, really being able to understand the value, the impacts from the technology and how to communicate and tell that story like Ivy mentioned earlier. So So we have one more question before we take questions from the chat. This one is for you, Rhiannon. I would like to know, looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think, as I was reflecting on this, really a couple of things come to mind for me. And it's really that idea of as Nidhi and Ivy were reflecting on before, sometimes our work can be so fast paced, and I think, we can have a tendency to feel the pressure associated with needing to deliver and provide something to clients or to others. So it's that idea of, like, enjoying the journey, really just appreciating that idea of, not that I have to, but I get to do these really amazing things in the context of my work. And what a privilege that is to be able to do that, whether in my previous roles or, especially now in the context of working for CGI and serving clients. And then I think, really that idea of to stop doubting myself. And I don't know if that's something specifically as women we experience really often, but that idea of, feeling that, knowing that, not feeling, but knowing that you've earned that seat at the table and you deserve to be there just as much as anyone else. And your opinions are just as valid. And then maybe the last thing, and I actually had an opportunity to connect with another participant in this event this morning, and we talked about that idea of values. And really the idea of learning to use our own values to guide our decision making, and understanding when our values may not be in congruence with the organization we're working for, and how that can maybe drive when we're at a place where it might be time to kind of consider a change.
That's really, really powerful. I do wish that I heard some of that when I was first starting out in my career. Nidhi, we would also love to hear from you. What advice would you give your younger self?
Sure. As mentioned before, like I started my career at a bank in the asset management department, and I'm such a departure from where that is now today. So, and the pressure I remember putting myself on, what am I going to do with my life? That question was so daunting. And if I had given myself this feedback, then it would be like, again, career is much more fluid than you would think. So, never think about what is my career period. Always kind of think about, what does that next step look like for me? What am I curious about right now? What's inspiring me, what's not inspiring me. That curiosity will help really open the doors to even a broadened network. It will get you connected and have more coffee chats and learn about different positions, versus only doing job searches through postings and applications. That curiosity of just figuring out what's interesting me for my next phase is a big component. And I love what you were just mentioning there, which is sometimes when we're in a role long enough, we often get like tainted or just a little bit dull. We're in the zone, we're doing what we do, and we kind of lost sight on what our passions are or what's inspiring us. But there are those moments, whether it's a team meeting or an article you're reading, or you're hearing about somebody else's career at a dining table. Take those moments and really capture them when you're inspired. You don't again have to do much with that, but just get a little bit more information. Make micro goals for yourself to say, if I was passionate about something, let me learn 3 more things about that area this week. Nothing in terms of that would give you much pressure if you're very busy in your day to day, but make sure you follow that. And that intuition sometimes can be dulled a little bit over time. So just whatever routines you need to do to remind yourself when you're passionate about things, how you follow it, or exactly what you're saying. If things are not resonating with you or not aligned with you, really try to listen to your intuition, because that's very powerful and it's a great guide for you in your career.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so that wraps it up for the panel questions. We do have some questions in the chat, some great questions, so thank you for those who submitted. So the first one that we have here is, what are the main challenges that you face more frequently in the consulting services? And maybe I will pass this one to Ivy.
Yeah, for sure. I actually get that question a lot of the time, and Martha probably knows that. That's why I get this question. The most challenging part is do you have the domain expertise? And from a client perspective, what am I going to do with your report? is a piece of paper that may not drive my business right away. And why do I need to pay for these services? How do I trust you that you can come in to do these works? And these are the very frequent and I think recurring trends that we do see. Consulting services tends to be one of those last things that they may want to spend, especially when they are really into operational control. But time and again, it's about patience, and it is about tenacity. It's around, we do understand your issue because we have seen it elsewhere. We work with other clients, and we are actually doing a lot of research on that as well. Because we're reading articles, we're keeping our curiosity all day and with the team. And this is what we see can help you to have those different type of wins in a different time horizon. And this is how we can help. So those are the typical challenges that we see.
Thank you, Ivy. And I've worked with Ivy before, so I can really see how she's able to take any challenge and turn it around. It's incredibly impressive. I'm very lucky to work with her in that way. So we have another question here, and of course, AI always comes up. So Nidhi, I would like to know, so how AI and its associated solutions have impacted the solutions, strategies, recommendations that CGI business consulting practice delivers to clients. Would you be able to speak about any AI capabilities?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And again, that does surround the theme that we've been speaking about. As AI is rapidly increasing its capabilities and technology and then the art of the possible that we're literally seeing in front of our eyes in rapid time, that seems shocking. Organizations are often asking, how is it that we're going to integrate this amazing technology into our world? And right now we're seeing a lot of great opportunities at a pilot level or a use case level, which is awesome. We have to get these quick wins so we can invest in AI more effectively and even more responsibly. But what's really interesting is how AI connects to the strategy of the organization. AI is so wonderful, and I think it could do so many different things. But the most important part is the technology should really be driving what we want to do as a business. So it does go back to the business, and our job really is helping connect those dots. Is to say, what is the mission and vision of the organization? Where do they want to play? Where do they not want to play? And how can AI be a driver of that? Versus, we have a shiny new tool. Let's go figure out 5 use cases in terms of how we use it. Now, there is some merit in that case as well to a particular point to get used to technology. But what I'm most excited about, and I'm loving the conversations that we're having with CGI and our clientele, is we're looking at domains of the organization and figuring out what does AI look like from that perspective, or how can AI really drive the strategy to get to the next level of an organization from an operation perspective, from a technology perspective itself too. And I think that CGI has put a lot of focus on responsible AI, which I'm really proud of, and I feel that we need to talk more about that as this technology is being rolled out. So those are some aspects in terms of how AI is being seeped into the business consulting area of my world.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. So I'm going to ask one more question. This will be for Rhiannon. So we have a question here about what skills or experience make the biggest difference when transitioning from a technical role into a leadership position within consulting.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. And I think some of those skills are maybe ones that my colleagues already touched on, which is really that idea of having, I'd say, a deep empathy for your clients and kind of what their experience is, and then how you're able to articulate those and translate those to kind of other parts of the organization, whether it be the technology teams that you're working with within their organization, or potentially the technology teams you're working with within CGI. And that really that kind of I think maybe it was described earlier as this idea of curiosity by Ivy, and then also combining that curiosity with kind of that strategy component that Nidhi was speaking about before. So that idea of, are we solving the right problem here? Like, I think sometimes we can kind of get ourselves caught up in, like, this is the problem in front of us and the one we need to address. But I love Ivy's earlier point, which is Can we take a step back and actually make sure that this is going to actually get the business to where it needs to get to?
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, so this wraps up our discussion. Thank you so much, Rhiannon, Ivy, and Nidhi, for your wonderful and valuable insights. I know that the audience here has probably taken a lot away. Thank you to everybody who attended the session. So before we wrap up, a survey will pop up if everyone can please take a moment to complete this. Also, the career booth will be open until 6 p.m. for those who are interested. Thank you so much again, and we're wishing you a great career journey for yourselves and a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.